All right, my mathematicians, we are back with section 7 to 2, chapter 8, percent change. And previously we solved proportions, and now we're going to talk about percents. We're going to find the percent of change. And in the second video, we're going to solve problems involving percent of change. So that's kind of our vocabulary: percent of change, percent of increase, percent of decrease. So in percent change is the ratio of the change in an amount to the original amount expressed as a percent. If the new number is greater than the original number, the percent change is a percent of increase. If the new number is less than the original number, the percent of change is a percent of decrease. Now, you may have never known this, but the percent symbol, percent, if we look at the word percent, it's really two words put together: per-cent. Now, per means for each, and cent, you can think money like cents, or like in the word century or centimeter. The word cent means 100, really. So percent means for each 100. So the percent symbol is really like 100. They just took this 0 and put it over here. You see how that's really like a 100. Not a lot of people know that, but I think it's pretty cool, so I like to talk about it. So percent really means for each 100. So that's how we're setting up the ratio. So determine whether each percent of change is a percent of increase or a percent of decrease, then find the percent change. So if you have the original is 20 and the final is 23, well, since you went up, it's going to be an increase. So you subtract the original from the final, so 20 minus 20, 23 minus 20, and you get 3. Since that's positive, that means it's going to be an increase. And another way to think about it is, since the final is greater than the original, it's a percent increase. So use the original number as the base, and then the numerator is going to be the change. And you want to compare that with the ratio of something to 100. Again, why are we using 100? Because 100 is for the percent, and R is going to be the percent. So if I solve that proportion, cross-multiplying, 3 times 100 equals R times 20. So 300 equals 20. R, divide both sides by 20, and you get R equals 15. And so the percent of increase is 15%. Make sure you put the percent symbol. Okay. In problem B here, the original is 25 and the final is less than it, so it's going to be a percent decrease. So you would do the final minus original, and you get -8 because it went down by 8. So since the new amount is less than the original, this is a percent decrease. And so use the original number. In these problems here, the original number is always the base. So set up your proportion. -8 over 25 equals something per 100, because the numerator is the percent, and percent means that number per 100. So you might be able to see, even without doing a cross product, that 25 goes into 100 4 times. So it's kind of like you're just going to multiply by a factor of 4. So multiply the -8 by a factor of 4 and you get 32. So that's a way to kind of see what we're going to get. But if you do the cross product, you'd get -800 equals 25R. Divide by 25, and you get -32 is the R. Since it's negative, it means the percent of decrease is 32%. Now, let me just say this here. You're not going to say that the percent of decrease is -32%, because that'd be kind of like a double negative. You're saying it's decreasing by -32%. No, it's decreasing by 32%. The decreasing, so we're interpreting the negative in the context of the problem to mean decrease. So you say decrease, that takes care of the negative. Decrease by how much? 32%. Okay, you see how they did not put the negative on there? Okay. So here's a couple for you to try on your own. Go ahead and pause the video. Now, I will say you might get some decimals for these, and that's okay. All right? So I will say you get some decimals. Go ahead and pause the video and hit play when you're ready. All right, we're back. So in 1A, the new is less than the original, so it's going to be a decrease. Let me just go through these. 1B, the new is greater than the original, so it's going to be an increase. C, the new is larger, so it's going to be an increase. And D, the new is less than the original, so it's going to be a decrease. So 1A, let's set it up. The new minus the original is going to be negative 36. So you have negative 36 over the original is R over 100. So when you cross multiply, you'd have negative 3600 equals 66R. Divide both sides by 66. And you get R is about 55. Let me just get the actual decimal. So you get 54.5%. Now, it didn't say to round. I mean, I rounded to the 10th place, but it didn't give you a specification for rounding. So you could round to the nearest percent. You could do to the tenths. You could go out more decimals if you wanted. But if it does say round it to the nearest percent, you would have to say 55%. If it said round to the nearest tenth of a percent, you would have to do 54.5. Okay? All right. So 1B. This one. So the new minus the original is 12.1 minus 9.8. You get 2.3. Oh, back to 1A real quick. You would say this is a percent decrease of 54. It's a decrease of 54.5%. So 1B, the change over the original equals the rate over 100. So you got 230 equals 9.8 R. Divide both sides by 9.8. And you get about 23.5 equals R. Okay, so you would say the percent increase is about 23.5. So C, if you set it up, I'm not going to run the whole way through it. You would get about an increase of 66.7%. And for 1D, when you set it up and solve it, you get a decrease of about 73.8%. Okay, and if you want me to run through those, just reach out to me and I will gladly go over those with you. But for the sake of time, I think we did enough. All right, so the total number of passengers on cruise ships increased 10% from 2007 to 2009. If there were 17.22 million passengers in 2009, how many were there in 2007? So this problem is a little bit different because they tell you the percent increase. They tell you that it's an increase. But what they don't tell you is the original amount, okay? So we have to use what we know. So in the proportion, it's the change over the original equals the percent over 100. Okay, so the only thing that's always the same is the denominator of the percent fraction is always going to be 100. In the different problems, the other numbers always change. Now, how do you get the change is the final minus the original. Okay, so we can use all that information to solve this problem. Okay, so let's check it out. Let me clear this off for you. Let F equal the number of passengers in 2009. Since 10% is a percent of increase, the number of passengers in 2007 is less than the number of passengers in 2009. So the change is always final minus the original, okay? We know the final amount is 17.22. We don't know the original, so they're using F for the variable. So it's 17.22 minus the original. That would give you the amount change, okay, divided by the original amount. Well, that's what F represents. F represents the original amount. We don't know that. Equals the percent over 100, so 10 over 100. Now, cross multiply here. Now, when you cross multiply, remember, since this numerator is a difference, you have to multiply 100 times everything, so put it in parentheses. So when you distribute the 100, this should actually be 17. There should be a decimal right here, 17.22 right there. So when you distribute the 100, it becomes 1722. All right, add the 100F to the other side. Remember, get your variables on one side. So it's 110F equals 1722. Divide by 110. And you get F equals 15.65, which makes sense because remember, it was a 10% increase from 2007 to 2009. We know the amount in 2009 is 17.22, so the amount in 2007 should be less than that. And since it was only a 10% increase, it shouldn't be a whole lot less. And so 15.65 makes sense. Now, in the context of the problem, what does that mean? That means there were approximately 15.65 million passengers in 2007. All right, here's one for you to try. Go ahead and pause the video and hit play when you're ready to check your answer. All right, we're back. So a recent percent of increase in tuition at Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois was 5.4%. If the new cost is $33,408 per year, find the original. So we know that the new is 33.408. The original is, we'll call it T, because we don't know what it is. It's the tuition though, okay? The percent is 5.4. So you remember it's always change over the original equals the percent over 100. So do we know the change? No, we don't know the change, but we know the new, but not the original. To get the change, you take the new minus the original. So 33,408 minus the original, which is the original tuition, divided by the original, T, equals 5.4 over 100. Now you got to cross multiply. So it's 33,408 minus T times 100 equals 5.4 T. Now I'm going to squeeze it up here. So it's going to be, put a line here to divide the problem off, 33,408 minus 100 T equals 5.4 T. Okay, just distributed the 100 right to here to the T into the 33,408. Add 100 T to both sides. So 33,408 equals 105.4 T. Divide both sides by 105.4. And you get T equals 31,696.39. And that's the original tuition. So let's interpret this. A couple things. You probably got more decimal places than 0.39. If you did, we just rounded to the nearest cent since we're talking money. And since the tuition went up by 5.4%, and we know the new cost, that means the original was less than it, and our original amount is less than the new amount, which makes sense. And it was only 5.4%, so it makes sense that it's not that much smaller. It's not like we got $4 or anything like that. All right? So the original cost is $31,969.39 per year. Okay, doke. All right, guys, that's it for this video. Hope that was helpful, and stay tuned for the second half in the next video. See you there.